You never knew what would happen when Muni and Earth collided, both becoming home to a reckless princess as she dragged her friends through various dimensions and adventures. Lasting 4 seasons, this tale of fantasy and magic told the stories of people just trying to do their best to figure out life and how to navigate it. But from the simple high school student to the revered queen, all these characters had something to overcome, and often also had something to hide. Hey guys, I'm Brad with WickedBinge, and this is Star versus the Forces of Evil, Good to Evil.
At last, I found you!
As we do with these lists, we'll be dividing the cast into 3 sections, starting with the most pure and working our way down. These characters are the good. Starting our list off as most good is Mr. and Mrs. Diaz. Parents to Marco, they're the Earth family that takes Star in. They're a loving couple, not having an issue with showing affection towards each other or towards their son and his new friend. They get their house destroyed on nearly a daily basis at the beginning of the series, but never lose their patience with Star, just commenting that it's never a dull moment with her around.
Back to the store.
During the time their house was haunted, we saw how far Mr. Diaz was willing to go to protect his family, plunging into a ghoul's mouth to save them.
Yeah, Dad, that was amazing.
A loving couple and wonderful parents. Next is Jackie Lynn Thomas. She was a former love interest of Marco and a friend to Star.
Nice shirt. Shows off your pecs.
She was laid back and rolled with the punches of whatever situation she was in, be it trying to get to a concert with her friends or almost dying during a sleepover. While she was dating Marco, she grew to realize that he was just repressing his feelings for Star and trying to recapture how he once felt about the skateboarder.
Stay amazing, okay?
She didn't hold it against him and instead encouraged him to do something about it. When she reappeared, she was seeing a young girl from France and assured Marco they could still be close friends.
We just weren't the best match, and that's okay.
Next is Sean. He runs security for the High Commission, and he isn't the brightest and is easily intimidated.
Sean, you little pig. You made a mess.
He does his job as best as he can, but he can be clueless to how much he's annoying people. He interrupts during the trial for Eclipsa with a very out-of-date typewriter, offers an obscene amount of weird donuts to Star and Eclipsa, not realizing how unwelcome his treats are, and he caved not frisking Moon when she snuck the other queen through security.
It's probably fine.
Look, he tries his best, but he can be a bit much. Next up is Marco. Marco is Star's first friend on Earth, and he's determined to be seen as a bad boy when he's just really a walking safety seminar.
You wear a helmet in the gym shower one time and you're labeled for life.
He's a nervous wreck, but works hard to try and overcome his worries. He takes everything he does seriously and approaches each challenge with enthusiasm. He called out Tom for his anger, he aided his sensei to be a better person, and he did what he could to protect Star and her kingdom after he was made a squire.
I'm just trying to get you the best stuff.
When Hekapoo found out Star was the one opening all the portals, Marco prevented Star from being shot down and took the map to see where Star was trying to go. He took up the wand to use the Seeing Eye spell and found her in the realm of magic, and he strived to be the best brother he could to Mariposa. When Kelly was dealing with her breakup, he was always around to offer advice and cheer her up.
That stuff takes time.
He was even willing to lose his affection for Star by having the Blood Moon curse broken. Next is Buff Frog, with a brief mention of his tadpoles. Buff Frog began as a hired hand to Ludo, spying on Star for the villain and reporting everything he found. He was one of the few competent monsters under Ludo's employment, showing distrust for Toffee right away.
Not all monsters are bad.
When he was given a second chance from Star, he showed his gratitude by swearing loyalty to her. He asked her to babysit a couple of times, but in exchange, he was quick to assist when Mooney was learning how to become monster-friendly. He even managed to see eye to eye with Moon, relating to her as a fellow parent.
I can't believe you're taking her side!
Go to your room!
Queen Eclipsa is next. She was once believed to be evil due to marrying a monster, but she proved herself to be a very compassionate woman and mother. She had been the one to give Moon the spell to kill Toffee, asking only for her freedom in return.
What do you want? My freedom.
When Meteora tried to take out the kingdom, Eclipsa took on her own daughter to protect Mooney. She told the people right away when she found out her husband had escaped, and she did all she could to gain allies and the public's affection, even though it hurt her to keep the love of her life imprisoned. When she found out the truth about her daughter at her trial, she didn't seek revenge against the High Commission, and instead just wanted closure. When she found out about Moon's betrayal, she gave the woman a chance to confess to Star herself and tried to make the best of things.
Do you want to tell your daughter what you did? Or should I?
Who better to mention next than Eclipse's husband, Globgor? He's a monster with a dark past, and he'd given it all up after falling for Eclipse. He understood that she gave up her kingdom to be with him, and so became a vegetarian, no longer feasting on Moonies. When Eclipse tried to free him, he refused, knowing Mooney wouldn't accept him as a king.
Put me back in the crystal and let my family go.
When he was freed, his first thought was to run away, so his wife and child wouldn't be hurt when he was found, and Mooney wouldn't be in a total uproar. It didn't work out to his favor, with him having to go back and face the High Commission, but his heart was in the right place. There's also this nice moment, when Star is confronting him, and once River states she's his daughter, Globgor pulls back and stops fighting, instead explaining his actions.
Yeah, that's right. It's Baba.
He related to River as a fellow father, and when he was fighting and Meteora was in trouble, he put an end to the chaos to save her. Princess Star Butterfly is the main character of the show, but that doesn't mean she doesn't cause their fair share of issues. She has pure intentions, but can also be the source of distress. She starts off learning how things work on Earth with Marco's help, and while her magic could result in the place being trashed, she makes an effort to clean up her mess without the help of magic.
My two besties are gonna be besties!
The more she learns about how monsters are unfairly treated and how her family actually came into power, the more she fought the injustice. She put Buffrog in charge of the monster studies at the palace and handed over the wand and crown to Eclipse. She battled against Mina and Meteora and strove to be a strong example for others, even if it meant destroying the magic she had come to rely on.
I'm going to Earth. Sorry, Mom.
Next are the rest of Tom's family, the Lucidors. This is an odd family, and there probably needs to be a translator in the room for at least a couple of them. Even though they are an odd bunch, they are supportive of one another, with his mother in particular being concerned over Tom's happiness. They put a lot of pressure on his relationship with Star, since it was a romance between royalty, but they made it clear that they care a lot about them, panicking when they saw Star jump into fiery waters to save Tom.
Mom, stop! I'm okay!
Next is Miss Baby. She was only in one episode, but her presence made an impact on Star and her magic. She was sent to see Star's progress on her magic and began nice enough, though she was very to the point.
Miss Butterfly, how is your spell casting?
When Star wanted to know why she failed, Miss Baby was quick to describe every single thing Star had done that warranted failure. She was harsh, but she needed to be, so that Star could reach her potential and pass the test. During her report, she praised the young princess, stating she was as strong, if not stronger, than Queen Eclipse. After her examination, Star's magic improved steadily, leading her to become the hero she needed to be. Miss Skolnick is next. We don't see much of her in later episodes, but she was a math teacher at Echo Creek High School. She tends to be snippy with her students, but does care for their success and well-being.
Do I need a hall pass?
Would you just go already?
She has made a point to tell Star she only wanted the young girl to put in effort to learn. She learned to embrace her new troll form, using it as a chance to be seen as strong and noble. She took on armor when her students were in trouble and was more considerate than many of the cartoon teachers we see.
I need you to get those kids to safety.
Now we're moving into neutral territory. This is the gray area. Starting off this section, we have Glossaryck.
Sir Glossaryck. Of terms?
Glossaryck is keeper of the book and helps train Star as well as the other members of the Butterfly royal family. He speaks in riddles and tends to be a bit too much, but he does his job well.
Look, kid, nature is like a runaway dump truck.
Initially, he had to help whoever possessed the Book of Spells, but once the book was destroyed, he showed loyalty to the royal family, trying to teach spells to Meteora and offering words of wisdom to Star. He allowed Star to destroy the magic, knowing very well he would go along with it, and gave a sympathetic ear to all those who needed it.
A good captain always goes down with his ship.
Even Ludo, whose requests were pretty weird at times. The Wayward Princesses will place together. They all stood for one thing: having the right to be an individual rather than being seen as dime a dozen damsels in distress. They took over the school they were once being brainwashed in to recreate the curriculum as something that would help them.
We don't believe in grades, no we don't. Just pancakes.
They still held weird classes on brunch, but there's still a lot you have to know when running a kingdom and meeting with allies. When they found out Marco was Princess Turdina, they still accepted him as their role model, stating it didn't matter that he was a boy when he helped them gain their freedom.
Why does it matter if he's a boy? Nothing he said was wrong.
Jana is next. Jana is a classmate of Marco and Star, and she made a habit of stalking Marco. She was able to assist Star and Marco later on, even helping babysit Meteora.
Let the babysitting begin.
She had a particular taste that only Tom found endearing, and did try to separate her soul from itself, but she also was the one to try and offer comfort to the monsters attacked by the Solaris soldiers, and even gave Marco a chance to run away from medics to reach the portal to Star.
I know how to drop my pulse to 0, but only for 60 seconds. Run!
Tom is a conflicting character that has his moments. He was a love interest to Star, with the two being on and off again. Tom is a bit of an impatient demon trickster, as he tried tricking Star by saying she was doomed to a life as queen and needed to pick her future king, wanting to be the one she chose. He tried binding their souls through the Blood Moon curse without her having knowledge of what was happening, and used Marco as a way to graduate from anger management.
Are you getting angry?
No.
He eventually calmed down, seeing Marco as an ally and friend, and letting Star choose for herself who she wanted to be with, rather than pressuring her, as he had done before. And who could forget the way he let Meteora take one of his many souls, rather than Marco, even after finding out Marco had kissed Star. Next is Kelly. She struggled with her breakup or multiple breakups with Tad, but never let that get in the way of her helping her friends or her passion for fighting.
That's the thing with you, Tad. You never go away.
She was there to help take on Meteora and teamed with Jorby to take on any challenges in her home dimension. She had a brief relationship with Marco, and even though they found being together romantically didn't work out, they still made a great team together, with Kelly offering to assist Marco during the fight in the library and against Meteora. Next is the former king. There's no doubt this is where Star gets most of her mischievous behavior from, as well as her survival training. While River did want his daughter to be a strong example for the kingdom, he also felt it was important she knew how to do things on her own.
Every once in a while, I need to sneak away and fight monsters.
Traversing the forest, fighting off monsters, making fires and shelter, these were all essential things she had to rely on later. He had some issues where he felt like he was losing his family, but his fears made sense. He made an effort to get closer to Marco when he saw how attached his daughter was to the young man, asking Marco to help protect her and Muni. When he saw Globgor suffering, he stepped in to help, offering meat and protection to the monster and sympathizing with them.
You know what you need? Some meat? Yes!
Too bad River didn't know his wife's real plan. Oscar is up next. Oscar only had a few appearances, but he was the typical dark, brooding schoolboy stereotype.
That boy has a record.
Though luckily, he was more laid back than expected. He never tried to take advantage of Star's interest in him to get anything out of her and offered her help when she asked. Those were always little things like some batteries or a friendly ear to vent to.
I dropped out to pursue my music.
Next is Sensei Tom. He was not the most on-the-ball guy ever, still living like a little kid under his mother's care and avoiding anything that he considered hard.
We're training. Ah, clip the toenail.
Kind of a weird trait for anyone running a dojo. He often pleaded for help from Marco and had a hard time learning any sort of lesson. He catered to Jeremy's wants and didn't really discipline the students the way he should. In fact, he seemed pretty neglectful. Still, when he was forced to admit his faults, he did relent and finally ask for help. He praises his students when they perform well, and when he changes occupations, he doesn't do a bad job. Next, we have Hekapoo, the creator of the interdimensional scissors and the one in charge of closing any open portals that lead to danger. She took her job seriously and worked to protect the people.
You humans are lame times 1,000.
However, she could be very stubborn, and that could get in the way of her work. She was so certain that Eclipsa was evil, she was unwilling to hear the woman out. She had a weird attraction to Marco, despite him being an Earthling and, oh yeah, underage. That loses her some morality points and gains her some creepy points. But she does help Eclipsa, Moon, and Star escape towards the final conflict, giving them a chance to ride out the destruction of Muni. Not great for a protector of the land, but we can understand the temptation. Dennis was Ludo's younger brother. Not as evil as Ludo, but he did grow up in the same harsh household. Being ridiculed by his family, he idolized his older brother.
Are you looking for my big brother because you want to help him?
Even though Ludo had all of Muni against him, Dennis still saw his brother as brave for escaping from the family and making his own life. He took Moon to find him, begging for her help. When he finally reunited with Ludo, he strove to protect his brother from his inner demons and tried cheering him up by rebuilding the old castle.
But I put this back together, just for you.
His tactics often didn't work, but it showed that one of the villains of the show was cared for by someone and could be a hero in some sort of weird way. One of the most hard-to-place characters, Ponyhead, has to be brought up next. She's one of Star's closest friends and is often the focus of episodes. She's prone to jealousy and is, well, she can be downright crazy.
Hold up right now. What the heck is that?
Because she's focused on being popular. She doesn't take others' needs into consideration. She does eventually warm up to Marco, noting how important he is to Star, and she offered to help Eclipsa gain popularity among the people of Muni. After the conflict with the Solarian warriors, she helped Star to cheer up, reminding her of all their friends still able to adventure and live their lives because of Star's bravery.
Then he must be safe back on Earth.
She's incredibly overdramatic, traversing dangerous roads in a storm after losing her horn and putting way too much value in an old dance club. And her stunt to involve Star just so she can expose her sisters and their plot against her was uncalled for. But win some, lose some.
I knew these no-class having wannabe queens were up to something.
We'll mention the Sloth Quest Buy employees next. They are a poor example of customer service and the kind of employee you never want to be stuck with. They're lazy, inconsiderate, and don't rush to help people even when children are about to be vaporized in their store.
You're not going to tell my boss about this, are you?
Now, it isn't fault of the employees that their company finds it appropriate to sell a gift card that kills off the buyer if it isn't used in time, but they could be a little more helpful and sensitive during those times. And literally watching with a drink in hand, waiting for a bunch of kids to descend into madness? Cold-blooded.
If you don't use it by midnight, zap.
Next is Tad. He's Kelly's horrible ex-boyfriend, and she called it right when she said his thing was that he never leaves.
Kelly dumped me again.
When he does eventually move on from living on Kelly's head, he still manages to be annoying, calling her constantly and bragging about how he thinks he found purpose as a bird's nest. Meteora, formerly known as Miss Heinous, made more remark on the show than originally expected. She began as a head mistress of St. O's School for Wayward Princesses. She was a little tricky to rank, but she loses a lot of points for a few reasons. 1. Sucking the energy from her students, and later all of Muni's to keep her youth and gain strength. 2. Trying to force the royal family to give her the crown that once belonged to her family. And 3. Hunting down Marco, blaming Princess Turdina for her downfall. But after she was defeated by her mother Eclipsa, she took on a different role that grants her a higher rank than expected. She began her life over again, becoming an infant at Eclipsa's hand and relearning how to be a proper princess. She's protective of Glossaryck and uses her magic to help Star, Moon, and Eclipsa to destroy the magical realm. When she's shown as a teen, she's protective of Mariposa, putting the girl's safety and happiness above all else, and willing to take out whoever she could to give the other girl magical powers.
It's my job to protect us, since Sport can't do magic.
Next is Ponyhead's extremely submissive boyfriend, Seahorse. The guy talks and acts like a victim of brainwashing, making him easy to use. He goes along with Ponyhead's dramatic escape from her home after she loses her horn and helps to run her very self-absorbed show, even going an extra mile and forcing people to watch it by hacking their compacts.
I hacked their compacts. It's impossible for them to turn it off.
He's a good employee, always working to promote new products, but is not a very functional being outside of work. We're now reaching the worst of the cast. These characters are irredeemable. These are the bad and the evil. Ponyhead's sisters earn a low spot with their initial plan to frame Ponyhead for murder. There is nothing redeemable about these sisters. They cause nothing but chaos. They're just as selfish as their sister, but still judge Ponyhead for her choices. When we first meet them, it's easy to see why they might not like their older sister, since they act more laid back than Ponyhead. But plotting to frame the heir to the throne of murdering another sister?
We can't allow you to snitch, sugar bugger.
That's really what makes them fall from grace. Jeremy was the most insufferable kid in the show. Another student at Sensei Tom's dojo, he was a rival to Marco, the typical spoiled rich kid. He's loud, brags about everything, and spends his free time trying to make others suffer.
I came to give you a black eye for picture day.
He plants $100 bills with filth just to see people struggle to obtain the money, and pays off Sensei Tom to be dubbed the best student. Ludo's parents, King and Queen Avarius, are next. We don't see much of them, but what we do learn about them isn't flattering. They degrade their children, favoring victimizing Ludo and Dennis the most.
He didn't even fit in our family portrait.
They weren't only horrible parents, but horrible rulers, being forced from their home just because Ludo changed the locks while they were away. We'll mention the Pie King next. The Pie people are known in Muni for being deceitful and sneaky, so it's no surprise that the man in charge of them is not exactly an upstanding citizen.
Okay, everyone, back to work!
When he finds Moon without her memory, he's quick to use her face and fame to sell pies. He offers her to leave, only to still hold her prisoner when Moon decides to leave with Star. His only interest is money, no matter how he comes across it.
Ready for your last meal?
Ludo was a consistent villain for a large portion of the show, slowly gaining more morality as the series progressed. He wasn't very good at his evil plots, always foiled in some way.
We are no longer friends!
After he obtained part of Star's wand, he did slowly become more capable, but was ultimately just used by Toffee. After Star used the whispering spell to free him from Toffee's influence, he went on to try and redeem himself. He reconnected with his younger brother, Dennis, and stated that he was still working to fight his demons, and still wasn't as strong as he wanted to be. He still had a slight grudge towards Star and Marco, but in the end, he didn't hunt down the magic and forged his own path, trying to improve himself.
You were this tall, and now you're exactly as tall as I am!
Toffee was a force to be reckoned with, not only against Star, but against her mother Moon, and even Moon's own mother.
Are you finished?
His goal was to take out the magic, and the only reason he isn't further down on our list is because he was ultimately proven right. Taking out the magic wand was the right thing to do. However, his tactics were cold-blooded, and not just because he's reptilian. He forced Star to use the whispering spell on her own wand, he controlled Ludo, he tried crushing Marco, he left Star trapped in another realm to die, and intimidated a young Moon after killing the queen. That's an impressive resume.
Your mom couldn't defeat us, and neither can you.
Omnitraxis was a member of the High Commission, determined to keep Eclipsa from power once she was freed. He was stubborn, like the other members, attacking Globgor while the people of Muni were close enough to be in danger. He's very narrow-minded, reluctant to admit to any mistakes, and even when he does relent in some fashion, he still refuses to say he did anything wrong. The bronze medal of evil goes to Rhombus, another member of the High Commission. He was the most unstable of the team. He jumped to conclusions on who he considered evil with little to no evidence.
If she is found guilty, the punishment will be death.
He crystallized Star and Marco at one point, and though Star forgave him, he still went on causing mayhem. He was used to free Globgor, thinking once the monster was free, Mooney would see that Globgor and Eclipsa needed to be sealed away again. He had no issue attacking anyone that stood in his way, and defended his short-sighted views no matter who was against him. He celebrated when Solarian warriors rose up, only wanting to see Eclipsa forced from the throne, and bragging to the other members of the High Commission when he was freed from jail. Moon may be able to speak alligator, but she's better at taking the role of a snake, which grants her second place in the most evil category. She was the one who gave Rhombus the idea to free Globgor during Eclipse's coronation, and was the one to seek out Mina and make the Solarian army.
Mina's working for me.
She tried to force Eclipsa to hand over the crown and the wand, and while she tried to be a good mother to Star, she was unwilling to listen to anything her daughter said. She refused to be associated with monsters, initially rejecting Buff Frog even after he offered them shelter in a time of crisis. And even though she was the one to have Globgor freed, she did absolutely nothing when Eclipsa was being blamed for it, and did nothing to save the new royal family, unlike her husband River, who was quick to step in. Even when forced into hiding in a bar, she still refused to expose the weakness of the Solarian soldiers to Eclipsa.
Let's just end this together.
A horribly vile woman. The only one that we can say is worse than the former queen, and therefore deserves our gold medal of evil, would have to be Mina, the surviving original Solarian warrior and the leader of the new army.
Time to fulfill my oath!
She refused to be seen as weak and associated strength with domination and control. She tried taking over Earth with Star's help, and after she was granted power by Moon, she used the ability to cause damage wherever she could. She saw monsters as less than dirt, working to force them off a cliff even when a fair portion were still holding on to their children in an effort to protect them.
Save Globgor for me!
She had no issue turning against the royal family, stating if they weren't Queen Solaria, then they weren't worthy of the crown. A truly deranged character that needed to be taken out rather than given a chance to leave once she lost her power. But what do you think? Who are the most good and evil characters in Star versus the forces of evil? Let us know in the comment section. Don't forget to hit that bell notification and binge our Good to Evil playlist, where we break down the morality of the characters from your favorite cartoons, shows, and movies. But most importantly, stay wicked.